The Senate will come to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the call of the Senate.
A call of the Senate has been moved and properly sustained. Will the sergeants please close the doors, allow no senators to leave, and return those who are absent from the chambers. Mr. Majors, would you please call the roll?
Aguilar. Balmer. Baumgartner. Brophy. Cadman. Cadman. Crowder. Grantham. Grantham. Guzman. Harvey. Heath. Herpin. Hill. Hodge. John. Johnston. Jones. Cafalis. Kerr. King. Lambert. Lundberg. Marble. Newell. Nicholson. Renfro. Renfro. Rivera. Roberts. Sheffel. Shorts. Stedman. Doctrop. Todd. Ulibarri. Zenzinger. Cadman. Grantham. Madam President.
Here. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the call be raised.
For the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The call will be raised. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to ask for a moment of personal privilege to introduce my granddaughter.
Granted.
Thank you, Madam President. My granddaughter would stand up over there, Jennifer Heath. She is here from Montclair, New Jersey, the middle daughter of our oldest son, Montclair, New Jersey. She's in student council. She's doing a fundraiser for the Autism Society, among other things, and I'm delighted to have her here. She's been with us. Thank you, Jennifer. And Senator Todd has some young people here. Real quickly, Senator Todd, I move for a moment of personal privilege for Senator Todd.
Questions, moment of personal privilege out of order for Senator Todd. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Senator Todd will be granted a moment of personal privilege out of order. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam President, excuse me. And just very briefly, I want to introduce a group of Rangeview High School students from Aurora, and they are known as Team Iniki. The thing that makes them very special is that they represented Colorado at the Cyber Patriot National Youth Cyber Education Program, and it is a program that was started by the Air Force Academy, so I recommended that Senator Lambert talk with them because the math, engineering, science, and technology has been the issue that has really drawn them together. And they earned the national championship in the Digital Crime Scene Challenge during the national finals in Washington, D.C. And so please join me in welcoming Rangeview Team Iniki.
Mr. Majority Leader.
You choose on personal privilege. So.
Message from the House.
April 25th, 2014, Madam President, the House has adopted returns with Senate Joint Memorial 3.
Third reading of bills. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 3?
Senate Bill 3 by Senator Nicholson and Representative Pedersen concerning child care assistance for working families in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 3 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
For the motion, any discussion? Question is the adoption of Senate Bill 3. A roll call vote has been requested. Mr. Majors, would you please poll the senators?
Murphy's here. Do we need a roll call?
Aguilar. Aguilar, aye. Balmer. Balmer, no. Baumgartner. Baumgartner, no. Brophy. Brophy, no. Cadman. Cadman, no. Crowder. Crowder, aye. Grantham.
I see we're going to vote today.
Grantham, pass. Guzman. Guzman, aye. Harvey. Harvey, no. Heath. Heath, aye. Herpin. Herpin, no. Hill. Hill, no. Hodge. Hodge, aye. John. John, aye. Johnston. Johnston, aye. Jones. Jones, aye. Kafalis. Kafalis, aye. Kerr. Kerr, aye. King. King, no. Lambert. Lambert, no. Lundberg. Lundberg, no. Marble. Marble, no. Newell. Newell, aye. Nicholson. Nicholson, aye. Renfro. Renfro, no. Rivera. Rivera, no. Roberts. Roberts, no. Sheffel. Sheffel, no. Schwartz. Schwartz, aye. Stedman. Stedman, aye. Toktrop. Toktrop, aye. Todd. Todd, aye. Ulibarri. Ulibarri, aye. Zenzinger. Zenzinger, aye. Grantham. Grantham, no. Madam President.
Aye.
Madam President, aye.
With 19 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 3 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senators Stedman, Madam President Pro Tem, Senators Jones, Aguilar, Newell, Kerr, Zenzinger, Johnston, Todd, Ulibarri, Schwartz, Todd. Please add the President. And Senator Toktrop. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 176? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you. Just real quick. Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, we are on thirds, and we got a long way to go, so I can just ask everybody to stay in here so we'll avoid roll call votes if we don't have to. Thank you.
Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 176?
Senate Bill 176 by Senator Johnston and Representatives Murray and Court concerning crimes related to entities that trade in stolen vehicles and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 176 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Question is the adoption of 176. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 176 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator King. Senator Todd. Madam President Pro Tem. Senators Newell, Rivera, Herpin, Kerr, Mr. Majority Leader. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 187?
Senate Bill 187 by Senators Aguilar and Roberts and Representatives Stevens and Schaefer concerning creation of the Colorado Commission on Affordable Health Care to analyze health care costs in Colorado and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Madam President. We move for the adoption of Senate Bill 187 and ask permission for a third reading amendment.
The motion is whether to grant permission for a third reading amendment. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Permission's been granted to offer a third reading amendment. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read L015?
Amendment L015 to Senate Bill
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, lines 1 through 9 are cleanup, and 10, 11, and 12, there was concern that we had given the commission too much authority, and so we're striking that they have any other powers or necessary. So I'd ask for your support.
Okay, go ahead and move it.
I move Amendment L015.
Any discussion? Question is the adoption of L015. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, L015 is adopted. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We move for the repassage of Senate Bill 187 on third reading and final passage.
Any discussion? Question is the adoption of Senate Bill 187. Any no votes? Senators Marble, Baumgartner, Scheffel, Lambert, Brophy, Lundberg, Balmer, Hill, Renfro, Harvey, Grantham. I think we already got you, Senator Balmer. No, Senator Kevin. With 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 187 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader, Madam President Pro Tem, Senators Kafalas, Stedman, Todd, Schwartz, Nicholson, Jones, Talktrop, Johnston, Ulibarri, Kerr, Newell. Please add the President. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 164?
Senate Bill 164 by Senators Carroll and King and Representatives Gardner and McLaughlin concerning aerial firefighting efforts through the Division of Fire Prevention and Control and the Department of Public Safety in connection therewith implementing recommendations made by the division regarding the Colorado Firefighting Air Corps.
Senator King.
Thank you, President Carroll. We move Senate Bill 164 on third reading and final passage.
Senator King.
Thank you, President Carroll. I will be very brief. We talked yesterday and a little bit again today about this being our time as leaders in our state to face a clear and present danger to our state. This is also our time to talk to the federal government that they must be good stewards of Colorado land, that we have 4 million acres of dead trees, their trees, around our water, and that is unacceptable. It is also our time to tell the Fed in no uncertain terms that they need to do their job and protect our water. This is our time to stop running from the fear of catastrophic wildfire, to turn into the storm, to face it, to fight it, and to destroy it, because it's a threat to our people. We ask for an aye vote, a resounding aye vote, on Senate Bill 164. Thank you, President Carroll.
Thank you. Any discussion? Question is the adoption of Senate Bill 164. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 164 is adopted. Senator King.
Thank you, President Carroll. I ask that the morning roll call be added as co-sponsors to Senate Bill 164.
Are there any objections? Saying none, morning roll call will be added as co-sponsors to Senate Bill 164. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Stedman. You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The Senate will resolve itself into a committee of the whole for purpose of considering general orders, second reading of bills, calendar, and Senator Steadman will take the chair.
Hang on a minute.
Raleigh, did you? The Senate will come, or the committee will come to order, and the coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 177?
Senate Bill 177 by Senators Kerr and Newell and Representative Young concerning the definition of a drug endangered child for purposes of cases of child abuse or neglect in the Children's Code.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to lay over Senate Bills 177 and then 178 until Monday, April, what is it going to be, 28th?
The motion is to lay over Senate Bills 177 and 178 until Monday. Without objection, the bills will be laid over on motion of the Majority Leader. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1216?
House Bill 1216 by Representative Sonnenberg and Senator Brophy concerning required safety markings for certain towers over 50 feet in height that are located in unincorporated areas of the state.
Senator Brophy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move House Bill 1216 and the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee report.
To the Agricultural, Natural Resources, Energy Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the Agricultural Committee, we did two things with the bill. One, we established that the safety markings required by this bill won't apply to towers that are located within the curtilage of a farmstead, which basically means within the yard of your farmstead, number one. And number two, we reduced the fine for having one of these unmarked towers a year from now from an M2 to just a $250 fine. Unless somebody is injured by the presence of that unmarked tower, then the fine will remain as an M2. That's what we did in the Ag Committee, and I will ask for an aye vote.
Discussion on the Agriculture Committee report. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the Agriculture report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. Senator Brophy, to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this bill will require is that towers in Colorado that are under 200 feet high and over 50 feet high that are out on their own, not next to a building, not in a farmyard, that don't have something on them that makes them visible basically to somebody flying an airplane like an aerial applicator or a crop duster, be marked with orange and white paint and alternating pattern to increase the safety for our pilots that happen to fly close to the ground on occasion. We heard testimony in Ag Committee where crop dusters, aerial applicators, were talking about how close to the ground they actually fly. Oftentimes they're, depending upon the crop that they're spraying, but they may fly as close as 4 feet above the ground, flying at 130 miles an hour, sometimes 180 miles an hour if they're transiting from one field to another. And it's a dangerous thing if you have small towers out there that are unmarked. We have lost 4 pilots in the last 3 years to collisions with these unmarked towers, and this is a matter of safety that the National Transportation Safety Board has asked states across the country to take up. We are taking that up with House Bill 1216, and I will ask for an aye vote.
Senator Baumgardner.
And thank you, Mr. Chair, and I rise in support of this bill, and I think it's very important that these towers are marked where they are, and a lot of this is out in rural Colorado, and being out in rural Colorado, you know, these planes fly along and they're close to the ground, and sometimes the kids, you know, they kind of get to where they're afraid of these planes as they're flying by. And speaking of those kids, I just happen to have a group of kids here today that has won first place actually in the science fair up in South Routt County, and that is Eden Mayer and Irene Hoffman. Could we welcome them to the chamber real quick before I continue on with this bill? And again, I rise in support of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion on House Bill 1216. Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, normally I would stand up and speak out against some of these bills. I want to tell you why I actually support it. I think this is actually one of the roles for government. When you look at our search and rescue folks, when you look at our military folks, you look even the Flight for Life and those helicopters, we're putting up new cell towers. We're putting up these new towers so quickly these days, it's not possible to keep up with them on the maps. It's not possible to keep up with them on the updated flight paths. This is just one of these necessary measures to say if you're going to do it, we've got some basic safety built into it and make sure we have a highly efficient and well-functioning aerial economy across the board. So I encourage your support on this as well.
Further discussion. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1216. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, please read the title. Oh, Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we proceed out of order and take up Senate Bill 159 at this time.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Ayes have it. We'll proceed out of order to Senate Bill 159. Mr. Majors, please read the title to Senate Bill 159.
Senate Bill 159 by Senator Aguilar and Representative Primavera concerning implementation of standardized rules for use in processing medical claims in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 159 and the Health Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the Health and Human Services report. Senator Aguilar.
In Health and Human Services report, we just amended it to make sure that the task force will continue to work on updating the edits every quarter.
Further discussion on the Health and Human Services report. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the Appropriations report, Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Appropriations Committee appropriated the funds to continue this program.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the Appropriations report. Will all in favor please say aye? Opposed say no. The aye has it, and the report is adopted. Senator Aguilar, to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill continues the Clean Claims Task Force. We're hoping that this will become a model for the country and that we can engage our federal delegation into helping us get the funding to implement this, which has a potential of saving up to $100 million a year in health care costs in Colorado alone. And there's a letter on your desks from the congressional delegation that they've sent in support of this effort, and I'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 159? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of Senate Bill 159. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The chair is not in doubt. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, we are jumping around a little bit in view of the hour and knowing some of the schedules of some of the people. So we're going to go to and hear all 5 of the telecom broadband bills at this point. So I'm going to move, Mr. Chair, that we take up in this order the following 5 bills. House Bill 1328, House Bill 1331, House Bill 1330, House Bill 1329, and House Bill 1327.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Ayes have it. We will proceed out of order to take up the 5 bills listed by the Majority Leader. Mr. Majors, please read the bill title to House Bill 1328.
House Bill 1328 by Representatives Williams and Quorum and Senators Nicholson and Crowder concerning the deployment of broadband into unserved areas of Colorado through grant making from monies allocated from the Colorado High Cost Support Mechanism in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We move House Bill 1328 and the Appropriations Committee report.
I don't show an appropriations report, Senator Nicholson.
We don't have one then? All right. We move 1328.
To the bill, please.
The purpose of House Bill 1328 is to enhance economic development, education, telehealth, and safety by connecting Colorado using some of the money in the high-cost fund to subsidize the expansion of high-speed internet to unserved areas.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know what? The 1328 enhances broadband throughout the state of Colorado, which a lot of the areas are lacking. I think the way that's set up, that the stakeholders have come to the table, and everybody seemed to be relatively happy. And I think it's a good situation for the state. And I would urge a yes vote on 1328.
Is there further discussion of House Bill 1328? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1328. Will all in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Opposed say no. Ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1331?
House Bill 1331 by Representatives Williams and Murray and Senators Nicholson and Kerr concerning the regulation of basic local exchange service as it affects effective competition in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We move House Bill 1331 and the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report.
There is not an appropriations report, so let's take at this time the Business, Labor, and Technology report. Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm waiting for my colleague to join me for just 1 second so we can explain this together. The Business, Labor, and Technology report resolved a conflict between House Bill 1329 and House Bill 1331. House Bill 1329 changed the provision to exempt from regulation commercial mobile radio services, while House Bill 1331 changes the provision to exempt from regulation inter-exchange telecommunication services. This particular change was resolved in the BLT report.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we do have an amendment I just passed into.
Senator Kerr, we're considering the Business, Labor, and Technology report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the amendment L004 will be to this report.
We haven't adopted the committee report yet. Is there further discussion on the report of the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the BLT committee report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and the report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Amendment L004?
Amendment L004, House Bill 1331 by Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L004.
To the amendment, Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a technical amendment to our technical amendment that was the Business, Labor, and Technology report. This brings some language together between House Bill 1331 and 1329. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on Amendment L004. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of Amendment L004. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the bill, Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1331's purpose is to deregulate basic local exchange service, sometimes called landlines, in competitive areas of Colorado. House Bill 1331 also has a provision for the PUC to regulate landlines in competitive areas if competition is not effective in controlling rates and assuring quality of service.
Is there further discussion of House Bill 1331? Senator Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think that this is an issue that we need to be paying attention to when it comes to deregulation of landlines. We want to make sure that we have in here, put in protections for our customers in our rural areas. And just for the record, we want to make sure that there isn't injury out there should there not be competitive environments that result as a function of these deregulation bills. And just speaking for the record that we want to attract more services, more providers in our rural communities, and we hope that these incentives will do the job. But I think we need to remain vigilant. We cannot expose our citizens to exorbitant rates or lack of service as a result. So and I do support the bill, but I also think that we need to make sure that we're not creating harm at the same time.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank my colleague from the Western Slope for helping us make sure that everyone knows just how vigilant we are trying to be here while making sure that our the telephone customers using landlines in the state are not over-regulated, burdened with regulations, nor the companies that are serving these folks. We also want to make sure that there are proper regulations and protections for these customers as well. And that is why on page 11, starting on line 6, we talk about what is commonly referred to as a clawback provision, which means that when, and this would be after July 1st, 2018, if the PUC has at its disposal information that says that House Bill 1331 has in any way affected rate increases or a decrease in service, that they would be able to roll these provisions back and make sure that customers are being protected to the fullest extent of the law.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We renew our motion for the adoption of House Bill 1331 on second reading.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1331. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The aye has it, and House Bill 1331 is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1330?
House Bill 1330 by Representative Williams and Senator Tocktrop concerning an update of telecommunications terminology for interstate telecommunications services.
Senator Tocktrop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I lay this bill over for one? I have to find an amendment.
Would you like to make a motion? Senator Tocktrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to lay 1330 over for one bill.
Would you make a motion, please?
I move. Thank you. That we lay 1330 over for one bill.
Motion is to lay House Bill 1330 over one bill. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Ayes have it. The bill will lay over one bill. Mr. Majors, would you please read House Bill 1329, the title?
House Bill 1329 by Representative Williams and Murray and Senators Kerr and Sheffel concerning the exemption of certain Internet Protocol-enabled services from oversight by the Public Utilities Commission and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would move House Bill 1329 and the...
There's no reports.
1329 on second reading.
To the bill, Senator Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, colleagues. This is part of the telecom package that confirms the deregulated status of voice over IP. Ask for an aye vote.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is meant to codify existing practice in Colorado. While it states that we are deregulating certain telecom products, these products are currently not regulated in practice. So I want to state for the record that the intent of the legislation is to maintain the PUC's regulatory oversight of basic emergency service, regardless of technology. With that, I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion for House Bill 1329? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1329. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1329 is adopted. That brings us back to House Bill 1330. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1330?
House Bill 1330 by Representative Williams and Senator Tocktrop concerning an update of telecommunications terminology for intrastate telecommunications
Senator Aguilar.
services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we lay over House Bill 1330 until after House Bill 1327.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Ayes have it, and the bill will lay over one more bill. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title of House Bill 1327?
House Bill 1327 by Representatives Williams and Marie and Senators Sheffel and Top Drop concerning measures to expand the deployment of communication networks and in connection therewith enacting the Broadband Deployment Act.
Senator Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We move House Bill 1327 and the Business, Labor, Technology, State Affairs, and Appropriations Committee reports.
To the Business, Labor, and Technology report, Senator Sheffel.
Colleagues, this is where we added back the refundable tax exemption for the bill to promote additional broadband deployment in rural Colorado.
Is there further discussion on the report of the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the BLT report. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report, Senator Sheffel.
As for an aye vote on the State Affairs Committee report, had a good committee there.
Senator Toktrop.
Yes, I also ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there discussion of the State Veterans and Military Affairs report? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the report. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. Aye has it, and the committee report from State Veterans and Military Affairs is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report, Senator Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ask for an aye vote on the Appropriations Committee report. We did do an amendment there clarifying definition of rural Colorado, bringing the amount down to unincorporated areas of the state and cities, towns, and municipalities of population 30,000 and less.
Further discussion on the Appropriations report. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the Appropriations report. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Ayes have it, and the report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill, or Amendment L024?
Amendment L024 to House Bill 1327 by...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We move Amendment 024 to the Appropriations Committee report. This is a technical amendment that staff recommended to clean up that definitional language we had discussed in the committee report. Ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the committee is the adoption of Amendment L024. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The aye has it, and the amendment is adopted. We are to the bill. Senator Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, I would ask for your support on House Bill 1327. Again, this is a bill that is part of the telecom package that furthers broadband deployment in rural Colorado by addressing deployment of fiber, et cetera, and towers and joint trenching and co-location. It also allows and incentivizes business through a refundable tax exemption for deployment in these areas. Ask for an aye vote.
Senator Toktrop.
Thank you, and this is pretty much almost a complete package, and this will go a long way to help get broadband, which is the goal when we talk about the telecom package and the broadband package, into the rural areas, and I too ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on House Bill 1327. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1327. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. That brings us back to House Bill 1330. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1330?
House Bill 1330 by Representative Williams and Senator Toktrop concerning an update of telecommunications terminology for intrastate telecommunication services.
Senator Toktrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I move 1330, and I was mistaken. There are no amendments. And this bill completes a package that we have been working on around telecom reform for the last several years, and what this bill does, it amends the statutory terms used in the telecom regulation, and definitions are added or modified to reflect current practices related to competitive markets, and eliminates obsolete definitions, and I just ask for an aye vote, which would be the completion of the package of the telecom reform bills.
Senator Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank Senator Toktrop for her long work on telecom reform. This is part of the package and a good bill as well. Ask for an aye vote. I'll be supporting it.
Thank you.
Senator Herpin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to have with me my telecommunications expert My wife, who will be celebrating 42 years with AT&T next month, started work for Mountain States Telephone and Telegraph while still in high school in 1963. I suspect some of these terms would be familiar to her from those early days, so I also support this bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion for House Bill 1330? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1330. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we proceed out of order and take up Senate Bill 118, House Bill 1170, and Senate Bill 206 at this time.
You've heard the motion to proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bills 118, House Bill 1170, and Senate Bill 206. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Ayes have it, and we'll take up Senate Bill 118. Mr. Majors, please read the title to Senate Bill 118.
Senate Bill 118 by Senator Stedman and Representative Melton concerning improving protections for individuals with disabilities.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 118, and I move the report of the Committee on Judiciary.
View the committee report.
Thank you. Colleagues, the Judiciary Committee report is a strike below amendment. It did quite a bit of work to clean up and reorganize the provisions in this bill. What I'd like to do is move the committee report and and I have a couple of amendments to the committee report that I'll be offering, and it might be easier to explain what's going on with the bill as we do that. But just know that this is a bill that really does some modernization and cleanup on our state civil rights code as far as it impacts protections for persons with disabilities. It also does other conforming amendments throughout the statutes to use people first language in a variety of different statutory references to persons with disabilities. I've worked with stakeholders and a great number of folks who frankly know a lot more about this than I do. But a lot of work has gone into the bill, and I have a couple of more amendments after this one, but I'm very anxious to see us move forward this bill because I think it does modernize and improve our statutes as far as providing protections from discrimination and full inclusion for people with disabilities. So I'd ask for an aye vote on the State Affairs report, and then I have a couple of amendments to it.
The motion before the body is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, could you please read Amendment L009?
Amendment L009 to Senate Bill 118 by Senator Stedman. Amend the Judiciary Committee report dated April 21st, 2014, page 1, strike lines 13 through 17, page 1, line 15.
Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L019. And colleagues, this amendment...
L009?
L009. Thank you. My apologies. Colleagues, this amendment makes some changes to the committee report, some that were requested by the Civil Rights Division in DORA to restore the Fair Housing Act protections back to Part 5 of the statutes so that we don't have any issues in compliance on the Fair Housing Act. There were some concerns about the changes there. It also makes some changes to the remedies section for instances of discrimination against people with disabilities in places of public accommodation. And what this bill will do is it will make clear that for people with disabilities who experience discrimination, either refusals of service or access barriers where they are physically unable to access places of public accommodation, it sets up a process where they can file their complaint about a discriminatory or inaccessible condition that they've encountered. The remedial offerings for these complaints are an order of compliance, a cease and desist order, and an order to come into compliance with the access provisions of state and federal law. They would be entitled to any actual damages that they've experienced. Those are monetary damages for things that they may have happened in the course of an instance of discrimination. They'd also be entitled to attorney's fees. There is in this amendment an exception or a special provision, I should say, for small businesses that have been complained against for having access challenges where they have some sort of physical barrier that impedes the accessibility of their place of public accommodation to people with disabilities. If a small business encounters one of these complaints, and if they remedy that complaint within 30 days of the filing of the complaint, the potential fine that they might face under Senate Bill 118 would be reduced by 50%. And so this is an incentive for small businesses that may have more challenges understanding the Americans with Disabilities Act and the architectural standards that goes with it, to be put on notice of the fact that they've got a non-compliance issue and experience a lower fine because of that, if they are able to remedy that within 30 days. This is something I've worked with some of the stakeholders on. It's modeled after legislation from the state of California. There are some other cleanup provisions, quite a few conforming amendments in Amendment L009, but it's something I think with the adoption of this amendment and the next two, I think we've got this bill in pretty good shape, and I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about it once we get the amendments completed. I'd ask for an aye vote on 009.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I rise with a lot of concerns on this. Number one, 30 days to fix something. Right now, my small business, my concrete company, we're 2 months out on work. So if someone puts a claim onto a business and wants them, and then the fine comes, honestly, in today's marketplace within Colorado, you're not going to be able to get the work done in 30 days. So it's impossible to have this as an incentive, I would say, or however you worded that for a small business to comply, especially as hard as it is to retro many of our buildings that we have in this state, and to have them come into compliance. And I think you should do everything you can to accommodate and to make everything accessible. But the fact is, with the architecture of some structures, it's not possible. And then the timing to do it within this timeline is not possible with today's marketplace in the construction industry. I mean, try to call a contractor and have them come to your home within 30 days to do something. Good luck.
Any further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L009. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. There is another amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, could you please read Amendment L011?
Amendment L011 to Senate Bill 118 by Senator Stedman.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L011. And what this does is it strikes the relocation of the definition of aggrieved person in the committee report. By taking this out of the committee report, we will leave that definition in Part 5, which is the housing discrimination code, and it will not be moved to Part 3, where it applies to all of the entire code. There was just concern about moving some of these definitions so that they applied in more global contexts, and so this goes back to current law on the definitional scheme of aggrieved person. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 011? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 011. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. There is another amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, could you please read the title to read Amendment L012?
Amendment L012, Senate Bill 118.
Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L012. And what this amendment does, it amends the definition of agency or state agency in the committee report on page 1 to remove the exemption for the legislature and the judicial branch. It was pointed out to me that this is in current law. However, we have written our ADA disability protection laws currently in such a way that we've exempted ourselves. It's an example, I think, of something in state statute that mimics what we see coming out of Washington all too often, where Congress passes laws that apply to everybody but themselves. This would remove the exemption from the legislature and the judicial. I would note that those branches are subject to state and federal civil rights laws. They're subject to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so I see this as just some cleanup, but also an important gesture of saying the laws we pass here apply equally to us. And I'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion on Amendment L012? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L012. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Amendment 012 is adopted. Senator Stedman to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, Senate Bill 118 is a cleanup and modernization of our state's civil rights laws that protect people with disabilities from acts of discrimination. And one of the things we're doing with this bill is we are moving some of the protections that exist in current law and centralizing them in Part 8 of the Civil Rights Code so that we have a more uniform and cohesive set of protections for people with disabilities. And we are very much modeling and referring and referencing in all regards the Americans with Disabilities Act. Colorado's current Civil Rights Code was actually written and adopted by this legislature before the federal civil rights laws and before the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And ever since then, which is over 20 years ago now, we have not really updated our civil rights laws to reflect the modern realities of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we're incorporating references to the Americans with Disabilities Act and consolidating those protections in one place in Part 8, where we expressly deal with the rights of people with disabilities. In addition, the bill does quite a bit of cleanup in the Civil Rights Code just in terms of the definitional scheme. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we are also going through and just making some language updates to refer to mobility devices rather than talking about wheelchairs and canes. We are using people first language to comply with a law passed in 2007 regarding the wording of state statutes so that we acknowledge first and foremost that when we are referring to this class of persons, they are people. They are people who happen to have a disability. They are people who happen to be hearing impaired or people who happen to be blind or visually impaired. But first and foremost, they are people, and we are using people first language in the statute when we refer to people with intellectual or developmental disabilities or people with hearing impairment. This is just a cleanup on our laws. I think it brings in a welcome change. There are some improvements to the existing law. The fines that are available for discrimination in places of public accommodations are being increased. They haven't been touched by this legislature in decades, and they are being increased to up to $3,500. The court would have discretion in awarding a fine depending on the nature of the incident. I trust judges to use this judiciously and to use the fine authority only in cases, where that is warranted and there's been some sort of knowing or intentional violation. We're also updating a law that passed in 1995 that protected people who use guide dogs, is how that law was written back in the 90s. Today, we talk about these animals as service animals. And in fact, the U.S. Department of Justice has put out rules for the Americans with Disabilities Act where they define service animals to include animals that provide and perform certain functions to assist people with disabilities. That service animal law is actually it's an example of where Colorado's current laws exceed the scope of federal protections, and we are not stepping back from those places where we exceed the scope of federal protections, but we are updating the laws and making sure that other protections for people with disabilities are consistent with the protections we offer under that the section that protects people who use service animals. I think this is an important bill. I think it acknowledges the kind of state and the kind of place that Colorado ought to be, where we have full inclusion of everyone, regardless of things that set us apart and make us different. I think this reflects our values of inclusion and equality, and it's something that I would commend to you and ask for your aye vote on Senate Bill 118.
Thank you, Senator Renfro. Oh, there is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you read the title to Amendment L013?
Amendment L013, Senate Bill 118.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 13.
To the amendment.
Members, what this does, this deals a little bit with the amendment that we just passed that the sponsor offered, and it would take the timeline that a business would have to complete the construction work from 30 days to 6 months. I deal with this on a monthly basis as a concrete contractor, where we deal with projects where we're trying to bring to code whenever there's been a remodel of some sort of business. 30 days is impossible. You might as well not even put it in the bill, to be honest. If you think that you're going to get a contractor and have them come in and fix this and retro something in that amount of time. So if you're really genuine about having that part of this bill in there, then you ought to at least acknowledge the amount of time it's going to take someone to get a contractor to come in to be able to help them comply, especially depending on the complexity of what it is. I'm just looking at something as simple as replacing a stoop and maybe an entry door. The second part of this amendment deals with the attorney's fees, and it would allow the prevailing party to collect attorney's fees as opposed to just the person that brings a suit within this. As a concrete contractor, I see this all the time, where we have people that are sued, brought into a lawsuit, they're found that they don't have any guilt or anything within the process of what's going on, and they're sued with multiple other people, and then all of a sudden everybody else is settled and everybody agreed you didn't do anything wrong, but you're the only one in the suit, and it's too expensive to go all the way through the process, and this would give that business this protection to collect their attorney's fees, so attorneys would not be out there hunting for clients to be able to go and just go after businesses. I think this would level that field, so if you had an actual problem, you would collect your fees and get it done, but this would also, on the other side of the coin, if a judge didn't feel that this was the right case to bring, then that business would be able to collect their fees within this too. So I'd ask for an aye vote on Amendment 13.
Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this amendment as well, and speak more to the first part of the amendment from the 30 days to 6 months. Members, this, as the good senator from Greeley said, 30 days is not enough time, even on new buildings that are state-owned buildings that are put up that sometimes can't meet code and they have to bring contractors back. These buildings can't be utilized, and I'm speaking from experience. These buildings cannot be utilized until these issues are taken care of, and if you can't get that contractor back, then that building sits empty. So I think extending it from 30 days to 6 months is the right thing to do, and I would ask for an aye vote on L013.
Is there any further discussion on this amendment? Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I'll ask for a no vote on the amendment. And the amendment that we adopted a moment ago that had this provision for small businesses, this was modeled after legislation that has recently passed in the state of California. And the stakeholders I've been working with on this bill brought that to me. And they said, we would like to see something similar for small business entities here in Colorado, to acknowledge that if someone's building a Walmart, they're going to build it to code. But a small business that may be, acquiring an existing building, there may be issues they're not aware of, and when they're brought to their attention, this gives them an opportunity to fix it. Yes, 30 days is probably a short time frame. However, this is something that was brought to me and requested as an amendment to the bill, and it's something I accepted with the understanding that we've worked out quite a bit of the language of this bill. This has not been an easy bill to draft. It's a complex area of law, and I would like to honor the agreement that I've made with the folks that brought this to me and stick with the model that they had proposed from this California legislation and stick with the 6 months. Or I'm sorry, stick with the 30 days. I looked at the wrong part here. Again, colleagues, just ask for a no vote on Amendment 13.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, you heard it. California's doing it, so it's settled. Let's just all go home. You want to know how long it takes to get an estimate back on a project that you're going to do? Not even to schedule the work. The first thing you got to do if you have something that you want done is you got to find a contractor that's willing to come look at the project and to get an estimate. In my business, we don't even tell them how long that's going to be because we're so busy right now. Right now, it's over 2 weeks to get an estimate from in my company for just a job. That's if we'll even go look at it. We won't go look at a small job. You know how far out we are on work right now? From the day we have the permit, the plans, and everything in front of us, we're 2 months out right now today. So if you brought me something today with all the permits, signed contract, because we already did the estimate, it would be 2 months till we'd get there. I'm the largest concrete contractor in Greeley. You might as well take this part of the bill out. It's no compromise. You should accept this amendment. This is a good amendment. It's a reasonable amendment. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I heard this bill in committee, and I believe I told the sponsor I was a tentative yes at that point in time. I stand in support of this amendment. The senator from Weld County is absolutely, positively correct. Anybody who has had any experience in construction knows that 30 days is under ideal circumstances. He didn't address the, what if you have to get a permit, which you probably do. I know I actually looked at the permitting process for a building in Weld County, as a matter of fact, and there they simply say 5 to 7 days is your minimum to expectation, you know, should be what you expect under ideal conditions just to get the permit. And the 6-month timeline is reasonable. The 30-day timeline is completely unreasonable. Let me address the other side of the amendment as well, however, because that's one area that we did get some discussion in committee, and that is, should the loser pay? And the answer is yes, but the insistence was the other way around in committee, and that is one of those areas that I wasn't so sure about. I look at this and I say, yes, this is the way to go, you know, litigation is so incredibly expensive, and to give one side a free pass and the other side a complete, you know, the bill doesn't make sense at all. This is an amendment that does make sense all in its totality, and without this amendment, I don't believe this bill should go forward at all.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L013? Senator Marble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this amendment. And I'd like to point out, too, the extraordinary circumstances that we've had within the state of Colorado with floods. What are we going to look at this year with tornadoes? Do you realize how booked up so many contractors are right now? I know I'm trying to get some work done on my house and on my shed. And it has been over 10 months now. This was before the floods, and now I do not expect to be able to get things done even through this summer. And contractors are just booked up, and it is impossible to get a real good timeline on something, especially when you have a disaster happen. You have to give room and some leniency on that for, extenuating circumstances that do occur in the state of Colorado quite often. If we get another tornado, do you think that they aren't going to need immediate services to reconstruct certain things that were damaged in that tornado this summer, or perhaps another flood? There are so many things that come into play. Look at the fires that we had in the mountains. Many construction companies are so busy. It is impossible to get anything done. And believe me, I am very patient on my house because the things that I need done, they can wait. Those people who need things done right away, let them get it done. Let them get their house back in order. Let them get their land. Let them get their roads. But you know what? We need to give more leniency than 30 days. And I think this is a very, very appropriate amendment. And I would say please consider and please do vote yes on L013.
Senator Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In considering this bill and the amendment that's been brought forward, it kind of reminds me of the movie Moses, the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments. And when Yul Brynner was playing the part of the Pharaoh, when he would want a law put into place, he says, "So it is written, so let it be done." But it's just not that easy in real life. We really, really have to look at the practicalities and what it takes in real life to get things accomplished. And I know 6 months seems like a long time when somebody's trying to get something accomplished as far as a change. But again, what we write here in law, as opposed to what really takes place out there in the real world, completely different ballgame. So I rise in support of this amendment and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L013? Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to speak. I have been teaching ADA classes in the private sector for years, actually since 1992. And shame on companies that are not ADA compliant today. Since 1992. Although even that, there are some grandfathering and clauses for certain buildings, but we're not talking about anything hurried here. This has been since 1992, and we're just getting compliant with it. So I ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last thing I'd bring up to your attention on this amendment, colleagues, this 30-day window is from the filing of the complaint, not from a decision of the court that someone is guilty of not having an accessible property. This is just somebody filing a complaint against them. So do you think within 30 days, say today, if you were a small business owner, someone came to your property and filed a complaint and you got that in the mail, do you think within 30 days reasonably you could go out, research the complaint, have someone come and tell you what you're in violation of, and then get someone to fix it? Do you really think you could do that in 30 days? Because that's what we're saying citizens can do. 6 months is reasonable, is common sense. 30 days, you might as well take it all out of the bill and not even have it here.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I come down to the aisle, to the podium another time to speak because I want to appeal to the sponsor of the bill to truly rethink this. You know, this morning we heard about previous Senates and how they would work across the aisle to find a solution that works. The senator from Weld County has pointed out a glaring deficit to the wording of the bill. 30 days doesn't work. It just doesn't work unless you want to just penalize the business, to just put a gotcha in there that they can't recover from, because 30 days is unrealistic. Now, the fact that a state on the West Coast thinks this is reasonable, boy, I could come up with about 1,000 examples of unreasonableness from that political mindset. But let's talk about Colorado and Colorado citizens, Colorado businesses. If this legislation is to truly accommodate those with disabilities within the businesses of Colorado as they interact, then let's make it work. This amendment is designed to make it work. It's unworkable in its present form. Let's come to the table and figure out how this works. And to just say no to it, I don't believe is, well, I more than believe, I know that makes the bill dysfunctional. So can we not move forward with, with the solution that's offered in this amendment, or is there another way? But the current wording is just not realistic.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, the issue under debate right now is something that's commonly known as a right to cure. It's the idea that if you're put on notice, you have an opportunity to correct your noncompliance. Currently, in Colorado law, there is no right to cure. Actually, most states, almost every state, does not have this opportunity for people to delay businesses being brought into compliance with Americans with Disabilities Act standards when noncompliance is pointed out. California has had a particular history on this issue where their penalties available are much higher than they are here in Colorado, and in the course of reforming some of their problems they were having from having high penalties, they created this right to cure with this 30-day window. They're one of the only states that has a right to cure. We don't have one today. I didn't want to accept this into the bill, and yet when I saw that it was limited to small businesses, when I saw that it was based upon a model that seems to be working somewhere else, and it was addressing concerns that raising the fines in this bill would invite more challenges and more complaints, and I was shown this is a way to provide small businesses some opportunity to reduce the fines they might experience and bring themselves into compliance when they did not know they were out of compliance. I agreed with the folks I've been working with on this bill to incorporate a right to cure into our state law where currently we have none. This is actually a concession that was made in the interest of trying to work this out and not have this law prove onerous or burdensome for small businesses. Now, as was pointed out earlier, this is the Americans with Disabilities Act standards. They've been around for over 2 decades now. For existing old structures that are not being remodeled, they can go ahead and be non-compliant. It's only when you're building something new or renovating an old property that you have to come into compliance with the code. And I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't think it should come as some great surprise. I think architects and people that do this work are pretty well aware of the fact that the Americans with Disabilities Act has standards for accessibility for people with disabilities. So this, to me, is sort of, we're spending a lot of time on something that's really probably a fairly rarely invoked piece of this legislation. But it is something that there is precedent for. It's something that I accepted as a concession to the fact that we are offering higher fines, and there were concerns that would lead to more complaints and more litigation, and this was a way to offer some relief from that problem to small businesses. Most of the non-compliance that's going to happen here isn't necessarily because you're going to have to spend 6 months pulling permits and building ramps. It's probably simpler things, things that probably could be cured within a 30-month or 30-day time frame. But to push this out to 6 months and to say, now that it's come to our attention, we're not going to be expected to remedy the situation and offer access to people with disabilities for half a year, I think that's unreasonable. This is an amendment, or the language in the bill that we have was an earnest effort to compromise and do some common sense things here to provide some latitude to small businesses. I'd ask you to stick with the amendments we've adopted so far and reject Amendment L013.
Senator Renfro.
I won't belabor this any longer except to make one more point. We aren't California, and in the concrete business, I've had months at a time where I've not been able to pour a yard of concrete. If we're below 30 degrees, we're in the wintertime, we're not sunny and 70 or smoggy and 70, as I used to say as I lived in LA, every day of the year. To where what do you do if this complaint is filed in December and we have some of our global warming and have our coldest month on record with the most snow through a month? That isn't on paper to be able to get through that situation either. So that's the common sense I'm talking about not being in the bill.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L013? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L013. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The noes have it. The amendment is lost.
As many as it takes.
There is another amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, could you please read Amendment L014?
Amendment L014 to Senate Bill 118.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 14.
To the amendment.
Members, what this amendment does is it would change this clock from the filing of a complaint to the decision of the court. So it would have to go through the process. So you couldn't have somebody just file a complaint and that starts your clock. So you're proven guilty and have to fix something before you really are proven guilty. And so this would give that opportunity for them to research, take it to court, see if there is a violation, if it goes that far, and then, once that decision is made, then they would have that time to do this. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I'll just once again ask for a no vote. This is just a different way of creating a delay in compliance. I'd ask for a no.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is a common sense compromise. A common sense compromise. I remember mentioning this bill to a friend of mine who has MS and is restricted for the most part to a scooter. And she gave me the example of some restaurant here in town that had accommodations for people in her situation for the main floor, but apparently there was an upper level and somebody complained, and so they had to renovate the whole place in order to get scooters up to the second floor of the restaurant. This gives a little more time to cure if this opportunity to cure is to mean anything. It must involve enough time to put the cure in place. I see my way or the highway so far from the sponsor on this bill. And that's not the way to treat the businesses in the state of Colorado. I know that the small businesses in Colorado, when confronted with the reality of this bill, will say, this is in name only. If from the point of the complaint to the cure is 30 days total max, that may fit under a very limited spectrum, but nothing of significance and nothing under, let's say it is a ramp and it's outside and it does involve concrete. Well, the good senator from Weld County who knows more about concrete than all the rest of us combined is absolutely correct. It may be 6 months before they can complete the project. Maybe 3 months. 30 days, ideal, absolutely ideal. Let's make it work. Let's put some common sense compromise in here if we're to move forward.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, you might not buy the argument for me as a concrete expert who puts concrete in, that the timing doesn't work. And I guess I'm accused of just wanting to delay. Well, let me tell you something. You know, my mom passed away from MS. She spent the last 20 years of her life in a wheelchair. I know what it's like to take a loved one and try to go places with a wheelchair. And she passed away in 2000, so this was quite a few years ago. This was even before a lot of the structures we have today and the improvements we have today. But I'm telling you, the language in this bill is not workable. And if you're wanting to do something to make it workable for people with disabilities, then there should be a little common sense put into it. Instead of saying, oh, California does it, this is reasonable. I ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L014? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L014. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The amendment is lost. To the bill. Okay. The motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 118. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. No. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, could you please read the title to House Bill 141170?
House Bill 1170 by Representative Garcia, Senator Stedman, concerning the authority of the state to enter into lease purchase agreements for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation's Pueblo Regional Office and Forensic Laboratory, and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1170, and I move the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Do the appropriations report.
The appropriations report adjusts the use of controlled maintenance trust fund appropriations to back us off of having overexpended the set-asides. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted. Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill actually was something we put a placeholder in this year's budget package for. It authorizes a lease purchase financing arrangement for the construction of a new crime lab in Pueblo for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. CBI has 3 crime labs around the state. They will soon have a 4th because of work of the Budget Committee this year. In Grand Junction, they have a brand new facility. It's modern, it's state-of-the-art. In Pueblo, their facility exists in an old strip mall. And this authorizes the purchase of a new facility so that we can have a modern state-of-the-art crime lab with space dedicated to DNA testing of forensic evidence from sexual assault, so that we can comply with the requirements for the timely and processing of DNA evidence in rape kits for evidence in sexual assault cases. This is a bill to invest in infrastructure for Colorado's future in terms of modernizing our Bureau of Investigation's crime labs. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this bill. Haven't been, again, keep reminding you, on the police department for 34 years. I can remember when that building was constructed quite a few years ago and put in that mall area, and it was a nice building. It was definitely a state-of-the-art at the time, but after 30-some years, I believe it is, of use, it's just outused its usefulness, and we're very much in need of a new lab, and so I once again rise in support of this bill.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1170. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, could you please read the title to Senate Bill 206?
Senate Bill 206 by Senator Stedman and Representative Seeger, concerning criminal record sealing provisions and in connection therewith relocating the record sealing provisions in a new part, clarifying when an arrest record can be sealed and making other clarifying changes.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 206, and I move the report of the Judiciary Committee.
To the Judiciary Committee report.
The Judiciary Committee report just corrected some internal citation and did a couple other little pieces of cleanup to allow for electronic service when permitted and to push the effective date back to August of this year so that there's little time for the court systems to update their forms for the implementation of the bill. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, could you please read the title to Amendment L003?
Amendment L003, Senate Bill 206 by Senator Stedman, amend printed bill page
Senator
99.
Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L003. This is just a little bit of cleanup for a couple things that were spotted in this bill after we were in the Judiciary Committee. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L003. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the bill, Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is a recodification of laws dealing with the sealing of criminal records. And we've passed a number of bills in recent years that have enlarged the opportunity for people to seal records of arrests and criminal convictions. However, because we've done this incrementally over a series of years, there are some inconsistencies in the procedures for all of those things. I was approached last fall by the judicial branch because the judges have been complaining that this area of the law really needs some standardization. And so this bill repeals all of the existing provisions that are cluttered in the Open Records Act and creates a new part within the Open Records Act, a new Part 6, where we will relocate all of the different provisions for sealing criminal records and standardize the procedures for how you file a petition and how it's processed in court. It's really a cleanup bill. There is one aspect of the bill that enlarges the opportunity to seal records, and that has to do with records of cases where you were arrested but never charged. And last year I had a bill that set the time frame for doing that when the statute of limitations had expired, and it was pointed out to me after that that there are certain offenses for which the statute of limitations never expires, and yet you may wish to seal those records if you were falsely or incorrectly arrested so that you could have that record removed. And this changes that so that those arrest records could be sealed when the investigation has ceased. It's a good bill, continuing the work we've been doing in recent years to make it possible for people that have had run-ins with the law and have criminal records to put some of that behind them so that those records do not impair their ability to put their life back together and move on. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Are there any further discussions? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 206. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, could you please read the title to House Bill 1072?
House Bill 1072 by Representatives Pedersen and Exum and Senator Gonzalez concerning an income tax credit for child care expenses paid by a resident individual with a federal adjusted gross income of $25,000 or less in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. I move House Bill 1072 and the Finance and Appropriations Committee reports.
To the Finance report, Senator Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In the Finance Committee report, we basically removed Section 1 of the bill on pages 2 and 3, and the reason that we did that is because of conforming amendments made in the House. We did not need Section 1, so that is the Finance Committee report, the removal of Section 1 of the bill. I ask for your support.
There's discussion on the Finance report. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the Finance report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the Appropriations report, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chair. In the Appropriations Committee, we basically struck the provision that accesses some of the set-aside dollars to offset the revenue impact of this bill. This is the Child Care Expenses Tax Credit Bill. Because the fiscal year 15 JBC budget packet includes expenditures and revenue impacts, and that is the essence of the Appropriations Committee report. I once again ask for your support.
Discussion on the Appropriations report. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the Appropriations report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, House Bill 1072 concerns the child care expenses tax credit. And very quickly, we actually have a child care expenses tax credit in Colorado. It was established back in 1996. It set up a tier structure. Interestingly, the sponsors at the time were then State Senate President Tom Norton and the Speaker of the House at the time, Chuck Berry. So we've had this on the books, but it turns out that for families that are earning less than $25,000 a year, they've not been able to benefit from the child care expenses tax credit. And so we're making a fix to it to say that if you're a working family, you have qualified child care expenses, you're earning less than $25,000 a year, you can claim this credit. It's a refundable credit, and it's not subject to claiming the federal credit. And ultimately, I think it's good for working families. It's good for our economy because you can't work if both parents are working or one parent is working and you don't have somebody to mind the children. You need to have access to quality and affordable child care. And I'm happy to answer questions. I ask for your support of House Bill 1072.
Further discussion, House Bill 1072, Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do have a question for the sponsor. You made reference to an earlier credit that was created. If I recall correctly, and I wasn't here, but my recollection is that that was a form of a TABOR refund. Is that correct? And does this have that same component, or is this just a straight tax credit regardless of TABOR refund mechanisms?
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, good Senator from Berthoud, Colorado. The short answer to your question is this is not TABOR related. The bill that was established in 1996, it basically said that up to families that have child care expenses, and if you look at the fiscal note, there's a good background, but it basically said that up to $60,000, if you had qualified child care expenses, if you look at page 2 of the March 31 fiscal note, it explains that it was tied into the federal child care expenses tax credit. So it was set up so that up to $60,000, you could claim a state refundable tax credit if you had a federal tax liability. Because lower income families typically don't have that tax liability, the lower income working families were not able to benefit. So it's a tiered structure. If you earned less up to $60,000, between $35,000 and $60,000, you could claim 10% of the federal child care credit. If you earn between $25,000 to $35,000, you could claim 30% of the federal child care tax credit, and then $25,000 or less, you could claim 50% of the federal child care tax credit. What we are doing in this bill is that last category, we are saying that regardless if you claim the federal child care expenses tax credit, you could claim this as a refundable credit and benefit 25% of your expenses, up to $500 per child, up to $1,000 for if you have 2 kids. It's not a TABOR-related thing, sir. Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, we heard this in Finance Committee, and we just keep doing the same thing, don't we? We keep saying, hey, whatever we're doing is not quite working, so let's make it more complicated, let's make more categories, let's make more criteria. Colleagues, we're going the wrong direction here. If you really wanted to help kids and families to provide a good foundation for them, let's talk about the things we're constitutionally required to do. Let's talk about tax credits for education. Let's talk about more options for education, maybe starting at an earlier age. The Constitution says we're supposed to do that. This is not within our purview. We've proven time and again we don't know how to do it, and we don't know how to do it in a way that actually makes a difference for those we're most trying to help. I encourage us to consider rethinking how we approach the issue of poverty, how we approach the issue of working families, and unfortunately we're just doing more of the same with this.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, this is something, it's a child care expenses tax credit. in order for families to work, they need to have care for their children. If there's not a grandma or grandpa to help take care of them. And so this is saying that if you earn less than $25,000, you can claim that credit and put more money in your pocket to help to help have some financial security. I think this is a win-win. We have experience doing this. It's not something new. And once again, colleagues, I respectfully ask for your yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1072. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and House Bill 1072 is adopted. Before we proceed, I have been asked to make a note that the coat rule has been relaxed, and that's for the sergeants and Senate staff as well. Happy spring, everyone. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1014?
House Bill 1014 by Representatives Del Grosso and Kraft, Representatives Heath and Sheffield, concerning modifications to the job growth incentive tax credit in connection therewith reducing an appropriation.
Senator Heath.
Thank you. I would move House Bill, or we would move House Bill 1014. And the Appropriations Committee report, you're right.
To the Appropriations report, Senator Heath.
Merely added the funding. Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. You do it.
Senator Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, would ask for an aye vote on the Appropriations Committee report. What was included in this bill originally, and I really appreciate Senator Heath working with me on this issue, was a provision for data gathering that, while good in its motive, ultimately was determined to be non-viable, and so that provision was removed in the Appropriations Committee, and would again appreciate his working with me on that, and would ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Further discussion of the appropriation report. Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the appropriation report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is one I have lived with since I joined the Senate in 2009. This is the Job Employment Senate tax credit. It has been exceptionally successful. The state's approved 41 projects. They forecasted to bring 10,598 jobs with a projected annual salary of $79,226 per job. So it's been infinitely successful. We extended it 5 years last year in House Bill 13-1287. This bill, at the request of the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, does a few things to make it a little more competitive, and that's the nature of the bill.
Senator Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and enjoyed working on this project with Senator Heath. We worked on it from the beginning, and I believe this threads the needle of the appropriate role for government in fostering a good economic environment without crossing the line. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1014. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1205?
House Bill 1205 by Representative Wright and Senator Crowder, concerning the Veterans Assistance Grant Program.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1205 in the State and Veterans and Military Affairs
To the
Committee report.
To the State Veterans Military Affairs Committee report. Senator Crowder.
There's a slight amendment on this. It was basically to have a report to the legislature's per annual that was left out of the original bill to keep them apprised of what's going on with it.
Is there further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the State Veterans and Military Affairs report. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What this is we have a veterans grant that have been It's already in appropriations, already been appropriated, and what we're trying to do is put this in statute so we know how to, we can rely on this on an annual basis. And it's basically the nonprofit organizations and government agencies that will help the veteran. I've utilized this myself as a veteran service officer. I can attest to the importance of it. And with that, Mr. Chair, I just move the bill forward.
Is there further discussion? Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to start out by saying that I appreciate everything that the veterans do for this state and also for this country. My question is, what is the federal government doing for the military? And since the military is under the federal government's auspice, why should we as a state continue to help fund that? Why does not the federal government fund these programs?
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, sir. The issue, the federal government, this is outside the purviews of the federal government. What this is if you have a veteran that is homeless, if you have a veteran that is out of food or out of gas, needs emergency of any type, the VA, the Veterans Administration, is more into long-term issues such as disability claims, such as medical. But there's so much that is not covered by the federal government, and most of this, if not all of it, is basically an emergency type situation where you have a veteran that needs gas to get to work, or a veteran that is without food. They are, even though I understand that your question concerning a federal issue, but the issues which plague our local veterans is outside of the purview of the VA. A lot of these veterans are not even, they are not disabled veterans. They are say your homeless veterans. They are, but there are two separate issues completely. I hope that answers your question.
Senator Newell.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to come in support of this and to clarify that Colorado, well, actually, all of the states do contribute to veterans assistance programs for things like affordable housing, job placement, job training, and mental health services, in addition to federal dollars. Colorado is one of the lowest in the country when it comes to support to their veterans. And yet we're one of the highest in population of military and veterans. So a couple of years ago, actually right before you came in, we did, we added some dollars in fact, it was my amendment on the long bill where we added dollars for those things, for veterans assistance. So this is a fantastic I vote. The veterans need our assistance, and I am a complete supporter of it.
Senator Crowder.
I might add, sir, that we've been using this grant for 2 years. This just puts it in statute, so we don't have to bother the very busy JBC board, and it's a good bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank God for sequestration. Again, I'm just really concerned that we've started down a road here. And you know what? Again, I'm really grateful to what the veterans do. Don't want this to be misconstrued as anything against the veterans at all. I just believe that we as a state continually, and the way I look at this year it's over $1 million. Next year it's over $1 million. We continue to grow FTE to promote this. So it looks like we're going to continue this on. And again, veterans need help. Let's let the federal government do what they're supposed to do and take care of the veterans.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you for that comment. The thing about it, it's got a half FTE. But the 2 previous years was used a contractor to do this. It's not an expansion of what we've been getting. But I will also add the sequestration is probably the worst legislation I've ever seen, because what it does, legislators do not do their job. Anyway, with that said, Mr. Chair, I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion for House Bill 1205? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1205. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1205 is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1211?
House Bill 1211 by Representative Young and Senator Toptrop concerning ensuring access to quality complex rehabilitation technology in the Medicaid program and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Toptrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I move up House Bill 1211, and there is no committee reports.
To the bill, Senator Toptrop.
Thank you. This bill came to me, and it says that folks with special disabilities, that Medicaid pay for their complex rehabilitation therapy, and there's some things like special wheelchairs and these type things, and this would create building codes for the complex rehabilitation therapy in Medicaid, set billing prices, adopt supply standards, require complex needs patient receiving CRT to be evaluated both by a qualified healthcare professional and a qualified CRT professional, which is probably I would imagine a CTR professional would either be an OT or PT, and I just asked for an aye vote on the bill.
Further discussion on House Bill 1211? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1211. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. The aye has it, and House Bill 1211 is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1221?
House Bill 1221 by Representatives Exum and Rankin and Senator Toptrop concerning continuation of the regulation of fire suppression contractors by the Division of Fire Prevention and Control and in the connection therewith implementing the recommendations of the 2013 Census Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Toptrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is one of the bills that came out of DORA, one of the bills, Sunset Bill, and this is a continuation of regulation of fire suppressing contractors, and also it creates a new registration for residential fire suppression system contractors and a separate set of residential design and installation standards. Need to make sure that people know what they're doing when they put these fire suppressant devices in, and I just asked for an aye vote.
Senator Toptrop, you need to move the bill, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I moved 1221 and asked for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1221. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1269?
House Bill 1269 by Representatives Court and Williams and Senator Johnson concerning the circumstances under which a person who sells items subject to sales tax must collect such sales tax on behalf of the state.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we lay over House Bill 1269 until Monday, April 28th.
Without objection, House Bill 1269 will be laid over until Monday. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1316?
House Bill 1316 by Representative Williams and Salazar and Senators Ulibarri and Guzman concerning methods to determine whether disparities involving certain historically underutilized businesses exist within the state procurement process, and in connection therewith commissioning a study to make such determination, requiring the Department of Personnel to track contracts awarded to historically underutilized businesses and making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we lay over House Bill 1316 until Monday, April 28th.
Without objection, House Bill 1316 will be laid over till Monday. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1273?
House Bill 1273 by Representatives McCain and Wright and Senators Newell and Schwartz concerning human trafficking and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Schwartz.
Where is it? Mr. Chair, I move House Bill 1273 on second reading.
Proper motion to the bill, please. Senator Schwartz.
And thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Newell and I are privileged to bring to you a bill that addresses a very significant, serious issue in our state and globally, for that matter. But what we are doing in this is harmonizing our statutes around human trafficking and bringing some consistency that makes makes it more enforceable and more identifiable and consistent with other efforts in other states to be able to charge and convict those that are engaged in human trafficking.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I ran to get my folder because I wanted to, even though this passed out unanimously out of both committees, we wanted to take just a moment to let you know how serious the issue is in Colorado when it comes to human trafficking. We have from the National Polaris Project, we have a letter C grade when it comes to the protections for people against human trafficking. From the Protected Innocence Challenge, the 2013 Shared Hope International, we have a grade of a D as in dog in regards to criminalization of domestic minor sex trafficking, criminal provisions addressing demand, criminal provisions for traffickers, criminal provisions for facilitators, protective provisions for child victims, and criminal justice tools for investigation and prosecution. It is happening. Senator Schwartz and I came together because I come from the South Metro area, which is clearly suburbia, where we are experiencing human trafficking, and it certainly exists in Senator Schwartz's district as well. It is throughout the state. It's an insidious crime, and but it's very complex. And so this bill works to increase, as Senator Schwartz was talking about, increase those provisions for the prosecutors who can get better cases through. And then lastly, it creates an advisory task force so that it is from across the state, all different kinds of disciplines from law enforcement to human services. One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it is that the majority of the crimes against children are from children who come from the child welfare system. They are doubly victimized. So I'm sure, Mr. Chair, that Senator Schwartz has something to add to about her district.
Senator Schwartz.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, this is big business. This is tourism, and there is a whole tourism industry, especially in communities like Atlanta, et cetera, where you can fly in and out of communities and prearrange whatever human trafficking liaison you'd like. So for that matter, it is something we should be concerned about in our resort areas, in our tourism areas. But secondly, we have found that it is very clear if a child especially runs away, and again, we know what our children that are in our foster environment experience, but if a child runs away, they're almost guaranteed within 48 hours of being co-opted by someone in this industry. So for that matter, I think that the state of Colorado needs to remain vigilant, put every resource we can toward this really critical issue, and I've been made aware of this for many years, and of someone very engaged in filmmaking in this, again, heightening the awareness. We have an annual meeting that's bringing all these stakeholders together, really paying attention to what Colorado can do to bring this out into the light and also throw every resource we can at the solution.
Senator Zenzinger.
Members, I rise in support of this. I participated on the Child and Youth Leadership Commission for Jefferson County, and we actually had a task force that looked specifically at this issue of human trafficking. And the statistic that was just mentioned by the senator from the mountains about runaways and about how important, how critical it is to get to those children within 48 hours, because if we don't, they end up becoming victims over and over and over again, and they get sucked into these traffic rings. And it's a really pretty terrible thing. And I want to point out, I don't know if you're aware of all the different coalitions that came together in order to put together the background on this bill. It's pretty astounding when you look at all of the different stakeholders that came together that are talking about best practices, looking at instances in other states, trying to learn from Texas, for example, and some of the laws that they implemented there, and figuring out how can we customize them to make sure that they work here in Colorado. And so I rise in support of this, and I encourage and I vote.
Senator Koufalis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I also rise in support of House Bill 1273 concerning human trafficking. The only thing I would add is that, it's been stated what a critical issue this is, and surprisingly to some, perhaps, the prevalence of it in the state of Colorado for a variety of reasons. We've heard about that. But I think another important component of this bill that's really critical is it sets up a Human Trafficking Awareness Council, and maybe that was already addressed, but I think it's important to reemphasize the council has a variety of responsibilities, including developing public awareness campaigns and a variety of other things that will keep this out in the forefront, looking at best practices, and just bring together the experts to see how we can do the best job possible to prevent, frankly, what's a scourge on our children in terms of being taken advantage of in the most horrendous ways. So I think this is a bill that we can definitely all support. Thank you.
Senator Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we had such compelling testimony. I want to thank members of the committee that heard the bill. But it's in our schools. It's in our middle schools and our high schools. And these are children that you would normally consider to be coming from healthy environments, et cetera. But this is, they know how to do it. It is very lucrative to engage these young people and pull them into these rings and then have them help recruit for them. It's right under our noses. And to the extent that at our own peril, we'll ignore this.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wanted to point out one more thing, which is that the research is showing us that that the victims then become perpetrators, that they are child victims who become adult perpetrators. It is an insidious crime that we really do need to grapple in Colorado. So with that, Mr. Chair, we renew our motion for House Bill 1273.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1273. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1213?
House Bill 1213 by Representative Kraft Tharp and Senator Crowder concerning pharmacy benefit manager maximum allowable cost pricing requirements for prescription drugs in the connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1213, and there are no committee report.
To the bill, Senator Crowder.
Yes, sir. What this bill is basically what we have is a pricing problem, and what happens right now, the PBM or the pharmacy benefit manager sets your prices every quarter. And what that does is since there's such a drastic swing of prices, what this bill does, instead of pricing it per quarter, what we're asking for the smaller pharmacies, as well as the consumer, is a 1 week report. And what this will do basically is tighten this up so you don't have pharmacies or consumers getting on the out end of the pricing. And it's a simple bill, and all it does is move their pricing from quarterly down to weekly.
Senator Koufalis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, good Senator from the Valley. I rise in support of House Bill 1213, and just make the comment that the one benefit to the consumer is that when there are these adjustments in prices and the pharmacies or the pharmacy benefit managers are not able to adjust to these dramatic drug price increases, they are less likely to have the medications in stock, and that will put consumers, that's one reason why it'll put consumers at a disadvantage, and so allowing for these adjustments to occur helps to keep the medications in stock, and this is good for the consumer if they need that particular medication.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I recall, also, your large pharmaceuticals have a daily reporting of this, and what we're trying to do is just get a fair shake for the smaller pharmaceuticals as well as the consumer. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would renew my motion for Bill 1213 for passage with an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1213. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1011?
House Bill 1011 by Representatives Young and Giroux and Senator Heath concerning the funding of advanced industry economic development programs.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm back. This was sent to appropriation just after I started with this last week. And
Senator Heath, would you please move?
I would move House Bill 1011. Thank you, sir.
And your committee report.
And the committee reports basically put on the funding, actually transferred the funding, so I would move.
Senator Heath, would you please move the committee report?
The Appropriations Committee.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Finance Committee report.
To the committee report, Senator Heath.
Basically transferred funding of $5 million to this bill.
Is there discussion on the Finance Committee report? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of the finance report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Heath.
Thank you. This is the Advanced Industries Bill, which we put into effect a year ago, and it provides proof of concept, early stage capital and retention and infrastructure funding to start up companies. It's been eminently successful. We actually requested an additional $10 million in funding for the next 2 years after negotiations, and it was agreed that we would we reduce the funding to $5 million, so this bill adds $5 million for the next 2 years. It cleans up a mistake that we made in the original bill, which transfers the funding on July 1st rather than January 1st. So I would move, again, House Bill 1011.
Discussion. Senator Baumgardner? Yes, we're on the bill. Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess what I'm concerned about is we see a lot of these advanced industry bills in different committees, and I'm just curious as to why last year we throwed $5 million at this year we're throwing $5 million at it, and the other bills that are in other committees, we're throwing money at it. I'd just like to know if we're ever going to see an end to the money going into this, because it doesn't seem to be doing anything to help anybody except throw money at it.
Senator Heath.
Thank you. And I can't speak to the other bills. This bill only is dealing with putting money into basically venture capital funding, if you will, and providing startup funding to small companies. And just so you can have a little sense, if I can come up with the numbers that I had, but anyway, and I can't seem to find it off the top of my head. But anyway, companies were standing in line. No, here it is right here. Received 159 applications. This is just for last year, totaling approximately $42 million. We've provided 27 grants, an amount totaling approximately $10.7 million. And they went into bioscience, and the School of Mines, seed money in the St. Louis Valley, all across. So it has worked, Senator. And the reason we're coming back is that there is such a great demand. One of the shortages that we have in this state is venture capital. We don't have the opportunities that, for example, that Utah does, which actually created a $100 million fund, a venture capital fund. I tried to do that, but with our Tabor limitations, we can't do it. So this is actually a very, very small effort to provide startup and mid-sized companies a chance to take some ideas and give them some minimal funding to proceed. It was hugely successful, and that's why we're back. I can't speak to the other bills.
Further discussion on House Bill 1011? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1011. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. No. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1011 is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1307?
House Bill 1307 by Representative Vigil and Senator Crowder concerning the recategorization of Mineral County for the purpose of statutory provisions fixing the salaries of county officers.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1307. There are no committee reports.
To the bill, Senator Crowder.
Yes, sir. What I did was this is a bill to recategorize Mineral County from from Category 6 to a 5, and this come over to me from the House. And at the point in committee, there were some questions about the lack of paperwork from the county officials acknowledging and supporting this. So what I did is I went down to Mineral County, met with not only the county officials but the entire county the other day. But this was last Saturday. I brought back signatures to verify that they did support it, and not only the county officials but the county themselves supported it. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would reaffirm my move for 1307.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the committee is the adoption of House Bill 1307. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Concurrent Resolution 2?
Senate Concurrent Resolution 2 by Senators Brophy and Carroll and Representative Nordberg submitting to the registered electors of the state of Colorado an amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning the protection of electronic data from unreasonable searches and seizures.
Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We move Senate Concurrent Resolution 2. And do you want to do the amendment first? Or?
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Amendment L002?
Amendment L002, Senate Concurrent Resolution 2 by Senator Brophy. Amend printed resolution page 2, strike line 11, and substitute homes, electronic, and other data and effects for unreasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Amendment 2. What Amendment 2 does, and this will ultimately become the bill, is what we're trying to do with the bill is protect your electronic data. We had testimony in committee that said that there are other ways to store data besides electronically. You can actually store data now organically. So we are changing the wording that we're proposing for this part of our Constitution to electronic and other data, and then we're striking the word other that's in front of effects because we don't need that modifier other in front of effects, which is existing language as part of the Constitution right now. So I move Amendment 2 and ask for an aye vote.
Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Senator Stemmen. I also ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of Amendment L002. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the concurrent resolution, Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, for a little bill with big, important values contained. Colorado's Fourth Amendment, the people shall be secure in their persons, papers, homes, and effects from unreasonable search and seizure. This is current law. We all know, hope, and believe that our what used to be our papers, our private emails, our private electronic information on cell phone, we really do all know, hope, and believe that all of that would be free from unreasonable searches and seizures now, and of course have the usual warrant and probable cause. But we believe that this is a great clarification and way to help solidify the privacy rights of Colorado residents by simply clarifying that our electronic property is included as well, and would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion? Senator Brophy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the question, should we amend Section 7, Article 2 of our Constitution, our state constitution, to tell law enforcement agencies this? Stay away from my cell phone and all of the transmission and all of the data that's associated with it. Stay away from my cloud-based storage. Just because it's in cyberspace doesn't mean that it's in the public realm, that you can go looking at it like you would look at it if it were in the street, for instance. No. Just because it's not physically in our possession doesn't mean it's not ours and it's not private. Stay away from that which should be private. I think in light of what the NSA is doing, gathering data from cell phone transmissions and emails, we need to protect our personal private data from law enforcement agencies in the state of Colorado, and that's what this constitutional amendment will do if you pass it today, send it to the House, and we put it on the ballot in front of the people. I predict that it will pass with 70 to 80% support of the people of the state of Colorado. Let's be with the people. Let's protect this data. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the committee is the adoption of Senate Concurrent Resolution 2. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the concurrent resolution is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
Oh, yeah.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Steadman.
Thank you, Madam President. Your Committee of the Whole has met and has had a number of bills under consideration, and I'd ask that the clerk please read the report.
April 25th, 2014, Madam President, your Committee of the Whole Big Lead report is under consideration. The following task bills being the second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bills 159 as amended, 118 as amended, 206 as amended, Senate Concurrent Resolution 2 as amended, passed on second reading in order to gross place the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bills 1216 as amended, 1328, 1331 as amended, 1329, 1327 as amended, 1330, 1170 as amended, 1072 as amended, 1014 as amended, 1205 as amended, 1211, 1221, 1273, 1213, 1011 as amended, 1307. Passed on second reading in order to revise place the counter for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 177, Senate Bill 178, House Bill 1269, and House Bill 1316 laid over until April 28th, 2014, retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Steadman.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Is there any discussion?
Hey, Cindy.
Do we need to pre-excuse them so they don't show up as citizens? Okay. Before we vote on the Committee of the Whole report, please note the following members are excused: Senator Balmer, Senator Cadman, Senator Roberts, and Senator Scheffel. The motion before the body is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With 31 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 4 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 159 is amended, Senate Bill 118 is amended, Senate Bill 206 is amended, Senate Concurrent Resolution 2 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1216 is amended, House Bill 1328, House Bill 1331 is amended, House Bill 1329, House Bill 1327 is amended, House Bill 1330, House Bill 1170 is amended, House Bill 1072 is amended, House Bill 1014 is amended, House Bill 1205 is amended, House Bill 1211, House Bill 1221, House Bill 1273, House Bill 1213, House Bill 1011 is amended, House Bill 1307 passed on second reading and ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 177, Senate Bill 178, House Bill 1269, House Bill 1316 laid over until April 28th and retaining their place on the calendar. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I think we're going to move to considerations of resolutions. I don't know if they need to be read. I'm going to move to lay them over till Monday. Senate Joint Resolution 3, House Joint Resolution 1009, and House Joint Resolution 1018.
The The motion is to lay over resolutions on today's calendar till Monday. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Those will be laid over till Monday. Consideration of House amendments to Senate resolutions. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 26?
Senate Joint Resolution 26 by Senators Zenzinger and Kerr and Representatives Peniston and Duran concerning the designation of April 8th, 2014 as Equal Pay Day in Colorado and in connection therewith acknowledging the persisting problem of wage disparity among various groups.
Senator Kerr.
That was a test to see which of us you like better.
Or which one's taller? Whose head does poor Mr. Majors cover? I'm sorry, Senator Zenzinger. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. We move to concur with House amendments to SJR 26.
Please proceed with your explanation of the House change.
Essentially, the House, in their infinite wisdom, added 11 words, also including the entire congressional delegation.
Any discussion? Question before the body is for the Senate to concur with House amendments to Senate Joint Resolution 26. Are there any no votes on concurrence? With 31 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 4 excused, the Senate concurs with House amendments to Senate Joint Resolution 26. Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask for the readoption of SJR 26.
Any discussion? Question before the body is the readoption of Senate Joint Resolution 26. Are there any no votes? Senator Harvey, Senator Grantham, Senators Lambert, Renfro, Lundberg, Hill, Marble, Baumgartner, Herpin. With 22 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, and 4 excused, Senate Joint Resolution 26 is readopted. Consideration of governor's appointments. Mr. Majors, would you please read the governor's appointments to the Waste Tire Advisory Committee?
Member of the Waste Tire Advisory Committee for a term expiring September 9th, 2014, Brian S. Cunningham of Pueblo, Colorado, to serve as a tire retailer and upon the resignation of Michael Scott, Squirrel Cove, Gordon, Colorado, appointed.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam President, and I move for the consideration of the appointment of Brian S. Cunningham of Pueblo, Colorado, to serve on the Waste Tire Advisory Committee and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Senator Rivera.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, if he's from Pueblo, he's got to be good. I support.
Any other discussion? The question is the confirmation of Brian S. Cunningham to the Waste Tire Advisory Committee. Are there any no votes? With 31 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 4 excused, Brian S. Cunningham is confirmed to the Waste Tire Advisory Committee. Committee reports.
April 25th, 2014, Committee on Legislative Council, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: House Bill 1117 be postponed indefinitely. April 25th, 2014, Committee on Legislative Council, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: House Bill 1161 be amended as follows, and as amended before the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. April 25th, 2014, Committee on Legislative Council, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: House Bill 1194 before the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation, with the recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. April 25th, 2014, Committee on Legislative Council, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: House Bill 1338 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. April 25th, 2014, Committee on Legislative Council, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: House Bill 1303 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations.
Announcements.
Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you. This has been an amazing day, colleagues. Thank you so very much. I just wanted to comment. I thought the memorial service for Senator Wattenberg was extraordinary. And what it certainly reminded me of that we needed to laugh a little more. I think I laughed more this morning than I have in the whole 6 years, and also the bipartisan nature, and I think we showed it today. Thank you for your cooperation. I don't think anybody would have bet if we'd have taken a poll that we would have been done before 4:15, and we are done. So again, thank you all very much for your support and cooperation. It's been a good day. So that Madam President, I move that the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, April 28th.
But not so fast, Senator Ulibarri. Would the members of the choir please come to the well?
Oh, my goodness, yes. How could I have?
Today is Senator Ulibarri's birthday.
Yes.
So Senator Ulibarri, would you find your way to the center aisle?
Where is Senator Lundberg? That was so much fun when more of us sang last week.
You're welcome to stay, Mr. Majority.
Maybe we ought to have more of us sing, even though we can't sing. Will you, will you accept a few more of us?
Absolutely.
Great.
Let's do it.
Would the choir please wish Senator Ulibarri a very happy birthday?
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Yay!
We just
Happy birthday, Senator Ulibarri.
That was the Friday afternoon version of the happy birthday?
Yes, yes. A little extra.
Okay. Madam President.
Yes.
I will renew my motion to adjourn until Monday at 10 o'clock, Monday, April 28th.
Great, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. All right. The Senate will adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, April 28th.